All right, got a interesting one for you. It's kind of alarming if I'm being honest, just because of how it was brought up and just how much influence and control Elon Musk, the world's richest man, has over our government and its agencies. So, article here from NBC News. Elon Musk says he and Trump are shutting down USAID. If you don't know what USAID is, it is the United States Agency of International Development. And we're going to go over this article, watch this video here, and stick around to the end. We're going to ask MAGA's favorite AI, ChatGPT, what the USAID is, its benefits, if there's any benefits to cutting it. So stick around. This is coming from ChatGPT. This ain't no deep seek, no communist AI. So let's start with the video.
Tonight, it seems like dramatic changes are happening at USAID. That's the agency responsible for providing help to developing countries and those in crisis. Vaughn Hilliard joins us now. So, Vaughn, what's going on here, and how is Elon Musk involved?
Right, Hallie. This amounts to a gutting of this key agency. NBC News has learned from several sources that in the past week, more than 1,000 senior civil workers and contractors were fired, furloughed, or placed on leave. USAID's website has been offline for more than 24 hours now, and I'm also told that this weekend the director and deputy director of the agency's security office were put on leave after refusing access to secure files to Elon Musk's Doge office. In just the last hours, Musk calling the agency criminal and saying it's time for it to die. USAID is the backbone of the U.S.'s humanitarian assistance around the world, and the Trump administration has also frozen billions of dollars of foreign aid that runs through it. Several Democratic lawmakers tonight are saying the crippling of USAID undercuts America's national security.
All right, so let's go over the article, kind of just summarize what we listened to right there. Tech billionaire Elon Musk said Monday that he and President Donald Trump were in the process of shutting down the U.S. Agency for International Development, escalating their war on the federal bureaucracy and defying the constitutional power of Congress to determine how money is spent. Musk, the head of Trump's government efficiency initiative, announced the shutdown in the middle of the night in an audio-only appearance on his social media site X. We're shutting it down, he said. At another point, he said, we are in the process of shutting down USAID. One thing I just want to comment on here is we almost had a lot of relief and almost coping at this point from other leftists that said, no, this Doge department from Elon Musk, it's just a consolation prize. It's just, it's all for show. It's here you go. Like, Trump doesn't actually like Elon Musk. Like, they're about to break up any day now. Here's this, here's this. So people on the left are saying, oh, this is just going to be a little agency, a little advisory board that they're going to tell Trump, and Trump's going to be like, oh, okay, thanks. And then just, tell him to fuck off in like 90% of circumstances. But that's not true. It is way worse than I think a lot of people thought. We heard the case of people being locked out of their systems and by Elon Musk, and in this one we have people being put on leave for not giving them access to their systems. Like, this is crazy, the amount of influence the world's richest man has on our country. It's crazy, and I don't know how that isn't a red flag to more people. These people, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, the other 10 billionaires, richest people in the US sitting at his inauguration, they don't care about you. All they want is to make more money, pay you less, and sow division between us, so we're fighting each other instead of fighting them, protesting them, and trying to get better wages and lower cost. It's crazy just how people are falling for this division so easily. So Musk did not say what legal authority he believed the White House has to shut down a federal agency without congressional approval or how quickly the administration planned to act. He said the idea had the full support of the president and that he had spoken with Trump on the matter several times. With regard to the USAID stuff, I went over it with him in detail and he agreed that we should shut it down. He said, I actually checked with him a few times and said, are you sure? And Trump responded, yes. It's kind of telling. It's like, you sure? You actually want to cut this? This is like a long shot. You actually want to fucking cut this? Trump's like, yes, let's cut it. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment on Musk's announcement early Monday. Trump on Sunday said that Musk is doing a good job and criticized USAID as run by a bunch of radical lunatics. Jesus Christ. Though he did not go as far to say as he planned to shut down the agency with or without congressional agreement. And then video here, we're not going to watch it, but life deteriorates for displaced Syrians after Trump freezes foreign aid. So yeah, a lot of humanitarian aid we were doing, a lot of the to a lot of the world and like crisis areas, that's all been cut off. So that's great. Trump administration officials have discussed placing USAID under the authority of the State Department, according to more than a dozen current and former officials and sources familiar with the discussion. NBC News has reported a move that Democratic lawmakers and legal experts have argued would violate a law adopted by Congress establishing the agency. Trump has said that he is freezing virtually all U.S. foreign assistance pending a 90-day review. Congress annually appropriates money for USAID to spend, primarily for foreign aid and internationally focused charities. Its budget for 2023 fiscal year was $40 billion, according to the report last month from the Congressional Research Service. That's a tiny fraction of the overall federal discretionary spending of $1.7 trillion. So yeah, it's the same as when they just gut all these random agencies that help people to save like pennies on the dollar of the actual deficit. And like I've said before, they don't care about the deficit. They're going to shave some money off the deficit and they're going to jack it way back up when they give their tax breaks. Because if you really want to address the deficit, it involves taxing people. And I'm not talking about the middle and lower class. It requires taxing billionaires, trillionaires, like soon to be trillionaires. I think fucking Elon Musk is any day now going to hit that fucking number, especially with the keys to the treasury. So I just can't, man. I just can't. I can't. So the president, John F. Kennedy, created USAID by executive order in 1961 after Congress passed a reorganization of foreign assistance. Musk's announcement followed an unusual incident Saturday in which USAID's director of security and his deputy were placed on administrative leave after they tried to prevent employees from Musk's Department of Government Efficiency from accessing secure USAID systems. 5 sources told NBC News the Doge employees threatened to call the U.S. Marshals, 2 of the sources said. The Doge employees were eventually able to gain access to the secure systems, 3 of the sources said, but it was not clear what information they were able to obtain. It was clear last week that the Trump administration and Musk planned a radical shakeup of USAID, one of the federal agencies where fear and chaos are sweeping over the federal workforce. More than 50 career civil servants at USAID were placed on administrative leave last Monday. Wow, that's crazy. So an unelected billionaire, soon to be trillionaire, just gets access to whatever government system and data that he wants. That includes data on you, that includes data on me, that includes data on your family. Unreal. And they're worried about China having your data. USAID has in the past had a partnership with one of Musk's companies, SpaceX. The agency announced in 2022 that it had partnered with SpaceX to provide 5,000 Starlink satellite internet terminals to the government of Ukraine following Russia's invasion. On Monday, though, Musk called USAID beyond repair and hopeless. He also said the agency was not an apple with a worm in it, but we have actually just a ball of worms. My God. In a post on X, Musk added that he had spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper, could go into some great parties, did that instead. What a fucking prick, man. Senator John Ernest, Republican from Iowa, a longtime critic of federal spending, joined Musk on the call, said she agreed with his assessment. It's not clear, though, how widespread that view is, even in a Republican-controlled Congress. What the fuck is Congress doing, man? You have the president and his cronies just slashing the fucking, like, constitutional law day to day, and they're just sitting there doing nothing. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? A 1974 federal law known as the Impoundment Control Act says that the president generally cannot withhold funds that Congress has approved. Some Trump aides argue that the law is unconstitutional, foreshadowing a potential fight in the courts. Oh my God. The hour-long event on X shortly after midnight was the first time Musk had spoken publicly since he and a group of aides began overhauls of federal agencies last week. Musk said he plans sweeping additional changes, including wholesale removal of regulations. God damn. Regulations basically should be default gone. Default gone. Not default there. Default gone, he said, although he did not make clear if he was speaking for himself or others in the administration. Musk also said time was of the essence for Trump to act. This is our shot. This is the best hand of cards we're ever going to have, he said. Now or never. That is so fucking scary. Like, what are we doing? That is terrifying. Terrifying, terrifying, terrifying. I don't know how else to put it. How much influence this unelected billionaire, soon to be trillionaire, has, like, on all forms of government. And Congress is just taking it. There's like fucking 2 Democrats fighting right now. Like, what are we doing? So, as I said, we are going to ask ChatGPT, some more information about the USAID, because I, for one, was not very informed on what they were. So we're going to go over a list of what they do and so forth, so forth. So I'm not going to bury the lead anymore. Let's just start. So as you can see right here, I prompted, can you list the functions of the USAID? What would be the impacts of disbanding it? And would it be a net positive or a net negative to do so? Alrighty. So the USAID is the U.S. federal agency responsible for administering civilian foreign aid and development assistance. Its primary functions include humanitarian assistance, so it provides emergency reliefs for disasters such as famines, conflicts, and natural disasters. Global health initiatives, supports programs addressing HIV, AIDS, maternal and child health, malaria, tuberculosis, and emerging diseases. Sounds kind of important to get ahead on this, but as we've seen, Trump is just gutting health agencies, putting pause on CDC publications, pulling out of WHO. There's cases of just medical, like, research data being removed from government databases, so it's crazy. Economic development promotes market-based economic growth, microfinance programs, and trade facilitation in developing countries. Democracy and governance assists in building democratic institutions, supporting free elections, and promoting the rule of law. That's probably bullshit. We don't do that. Like, the U.S. does not do that. We pretend we do. We don't. I'm not going to give that a point. Education programs, funds initiatives to improve literacy, vocational training, and higher education access in developing nations. Environmental protection and climate change mitigation. Support initiatives for sustainable development, conservation, and clean energy solutions. Conflict prevention and stabilization. Works in post-conflict regions to rebuild society, support peace efforts, and reduce violent extremism. Food security and agriculture, provides support for sustainable agriculture, hunger relief, and rural development programs. Infrastructure development helps construct roads, energy grids, and water systems in developing countries. Women's empowerment and gender equality, supports efforts to promote women's rights and economic participation and leadership. Well, Republicans don't like that one. So a lot of this is what is considered soft power, projecting soft power around the globe. Having U.S. influence in more countries without necessarily military backing. So it helps decrease outbreaks of certain, epidemic, pandemics, whatever, around the world in these, more susceptible nations. And it's also meant to uplift developing countries, build up their infrastructure, and it's almost something that pays for itself, because as you develop these countries, build closer ties, and modernize their economy and their infrastructure, that in turn opens up another trading partner and benefits our economy that way. Don't believe me? Do the research. So let's look at the impacts of disbanding USAID. If USAID were disbanded, the effects would be wide-ranging, both domestically and internationally. Here's a breakdown. Humanitarian crises would worsen. USAID provides rapid response aid in disastrous conflicts. Without it, many crises would escalate due to lack of resources. Increase global instability. Weakening U.S. global influence in development could create power vacuums, allowing rival nations, China and Russia, to expand their geopolitical influence. So yeah, if that's something important to you, then yeah, you're basically conceding a lot of areas to Russian and Chinese influence. I'm not much of a hardliner on that, but I know a lot of people are, so that's something to consider. This is very important for soft power and projecting around the globe without direct military intervention. So weakened diplomatic ties. The USAID fosters goodwill between the U.S. and other nations. Its removal would erode diplomatic relationships and U.S. soft power, as we said. I also skipped number 3. So damage to U.S. national security. Many USAID programs prevent the rise of terrorism, violent extremism, and political instability. Without these, security risks to the U.S. could increase. And then back to circling to number 5, loss of economic opportunities. U.S. businesses benefit from developing programs by expanding into foreign markets. Without USAID, American companies may lose competitive advantages in emerging economies, kind of like we talked about here. This is something that almost pays for itself. Increased migration and refugee crisis. Economic development programs help stabilize countries and reduce forced migration. Without them, more people might flee to the U.S. and Europe. Public health risk. USAID plays a crucial role in global health initiatives. Its absence could allow pandemics and infectious diseases to spread more easily. All right, and that was, 7 negatives? Let's look at the potential positives. Budget savings. The USAID has an annual budget of approximately $30 billion. I think it's more like $40 billion, like the NBC article said, so we'll at least say $40 billion for argument's sake. Disbanding it could free up funds for domestic priorities. See, if that were the case, but it's just freeing up funds to give tax breaks to billionaires. That's all it is. It's the best way to put it. And as we seen in an NBC article, it's such a small fraction. And as we read above, that $40 billion that we pay annually is something that in the long term pays itself off, and getting rid of that is going to be devastating in the long term, and it's going to cost us more in the long term not to pay that $40 billion to continue these programs. Less U.S. government intervention abroad. Some critics argue that foreign aid fosters dependency or interferes with national sovereignty. I was amongst this crowd not too long ago. I've kind of opened up on geopolitical things, not saying I'm an intervention hawk or anything like that, but I do acknowledge the importance of U.S. being on the world stage and having kind of a soft power projection around the world, just because we should have allies and we should have as many trading partners as we can. That's a good thing. And not to mention just nipping in the bud so many other issues like terrorism and infectious disease outbreaks. So I can respect if your position is you just want U.S. to have less intervention abroad. I respect that. Encourages private sector involvement. Without USAID, NGOs, businesses, and charities might step up to fill in the gaps in foreign aid and development. I think that's wishful thinking, and I don't think there's any evidence that would really support that. I'm sure some would, but it's going to be nowhere near as effective as it was if we were just supporting it. And like I said, this isn't like a $40 billion net loss. This is something that pays for itself over years and years and years. So Is this a net positive or a net negative? Disbanding USAID would likely be a net negative. While it may save money in the short term, the long-term consequences, greater instability, security risk, loss of diplomatic influence, and weakened economic ties would outweigh the financial benefits. Additionally, many humanitarian and global health crises could worsen, leading to increased global instability that could directly affect U.S. interests. So, yeah, like it's easy to think about this and be like, oh, that's 40 billion we could easily save, but you have to go beneath the surface and really research, like, is this actually going to be a net positive or a net negative? And it's clearly, clear as day, a net negative. And does this program have problems? Of course, I'm sure it does. I'm not educated enough to know all those problems. But I always circle back. If something has a problem, fix it. Don't flip the fucking table and say, fuck it, we're done, we're cutting it all. It's dumb. Like, we are just hurting our international reputation. We're starting trade wars with our closest allies, and then we are pulling foreign aid from so many developing countries we've built ties with. Like, how are we on the world stage going to come back from this and rebuild these ties when everyone knows now that in 4 years, everything could just flip on the, like, just flip. Coin toss, flip. All foreign policy is different. It's just crazy. And it just gets worse and worse, the flipping and the priorities of Democrats and Republicans. It's crazy. But yeah, that's all I have for that. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will see you in the next one. If you made it to this point in the video, I just want to give a special thank you. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button down below. And if you really enjoyed it, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button while you're down there. I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. I will try to reply to any and all comments that I can. Until next time, watch that video on screen.